Hi everyone. Welcome to week 6 of our Composition 1 class and also our Fundamentals of College Writing class if you happen to be in both. This video is going to be an overview of what we are doing in class this week. Or maybe a run through is maybe a better way of saying it, because I'll probably be reading most of what is showing up in the weekly module here. So to start off with for Comp 1, this week we'll continue working on Writing Project 2 by completing several pre-writing and planning activities and discussing a sample student paper. Remember, as I have mentioned before, pre-writing is where the ideas develop and solidify. Students often tell me that the more time they spend on pre-writing, the easier their drafts are to write. And I can also speak from personal experience. I tend to spend a lot of time pre-writing and planning and just working on my organization and brainstorming. And I find the more that I do, typically the easier it is for me to write the essay when I'm done. For task 6.1, you have a couple of readings from our textbook. You should read the chapter beginning and ending, and then also guiding your reader. In task 6.2, you're going to be completing pre-writing activities for your draft. Now that you've chosen the images you want to analyze for Project 2, you can start generating ideas for your analysis. There are two options below for pre-writing. You can choose either option, or you can do kind of a combination of both. It's up to you. I don't really mind which you choose, but the goal here is to produce a substantial amount of thinking and writing. So I need to see that you are putting in a fairly good amount of time and work into this pre-writing activity. For instance here, you'll notice that it's expected that this will probably take you a couple of hours to do. So this task isn't something to just blow through. And if you would like to get full credit on it, which I'm assuming that you do, make sure that you are providing pretty thorough responses to the prompts below. Your first option here is responding to specific prompts. As you respond to the prompts, you might want to mark up your images either by hand or on your computer to help you notice details. You can see the example provided by a former English 1100 student. It is up here. You can download their writing sample. You can also see the marked up images and Tristan's full pre-writing by downloading the document that I just mentioned. The prompts that you'd respond to. Think back to the lens video you watched and look carefully at the notes you and your classmates posted on Blackboard. Free write about the ways in which your images do or do not illustrate some of the main ideas in one or more of those lens videos. And as a real quick side note here, you are technically only required to watch one of the videos from last week, but my recommendation would be to watch at least a couple, if not all of them. They're all pretty solid videos. I like some of them more than others, but on the whole, they have a lot of really good ideas. And you don't really want to back yourself into a corner. You know, if you only watch one of those videos, then you are kind of forced to write about that topic. So if you watch the three kind of main videos there from Katz, Crenshaw, and oh, what's her name? Kilborn. I would try to watch all three if you have the time. That way, you are opening yourself up to a variety of different ways you could approach this project. Anyway, back to this pre-writing. Number 2 here, consider whether you want to focus on race, gender, or both in your analysis of your images. If you want to focus on race, click on the link below and write out notes in response to the checklist questions at the bottom of the page. Notice that the questions mention ads specifically, but most of the questions apply to other kinds of images as well. And then the same thing here if you want to focus on gender. Step 3 here, reflect back on all the pre-writing you've done so far and free write in response to these questions. What's the overall representation that's being projected about the people in your images? You know, what do the images seem to be saying about the people in them? Is the representation positive, negative, destructive, something else? what visual and verbal elements contribute to this representation? So you're kind of reaching a conclusion about what's going on in these images. You're going to be making a claim about them. But in order to make that claim or to make that judgment, you need to have something that led you to that conclusion. So be specific about what is going on in the image that led you to those conclusions. And then what ideas from the Lens videos could you use to further explore the ways in which race and/or gender are represented in your images? And again, I'd like you to be specific. In option 2 here, this is a little bit less specific than option 1. You should try out several of the strategies described here. And I've had issues with people in the past. If they choose option 2, they'll just do like one of these things, maybe 2. If you want to get full credit for this pre-writing, as I mentioned earlier, make sure that you're being pretty thorough. I would like to see you do probably 3 to 4 of these different brainstorming activities if you would like to get full credit. In task 6.3, you're going to make your Wednesday discussion post. For the post, we're going to be analyzing a student draft in progress. So it's not a complete draft. You'll find the student sample here. Before you read the draft, review the assignment description. So in other words, go back to the assignment sheet for Writing Project 2, which is over here under Writing Projects. You'll find the description of Writing Project 2. Hopefully you've read through that and have already familiarized yourself with it. Then, as you read the sample, ask yourself whether the student writer is doing the things asked of them in the assignment sheet. Then, write a discussion board post about what you see as the strengths and weaknesses of this paper. What is the student doing well in the draft? What could the student improve on? And I'd like you to be as specific as you can. So provide specific examples of what they're doing well and what they could improve on. In task 6.4, you're going to be developing a tentative thesis statement for your draft. So you've done some pre-writing, and now you're going to come up with the claim that you're going to be developing or arguing over the course of Writing Project 2. As our textbook explains, a thesis is the major claim that a paper makes. It establishes the main ideas you'll develop and prove in the rest of your paper. A thesis is an explicit statement that's typically, but not always, placed in the opening paragraph or 2 of an academic paper. Some examples of thesis statements are as follows. As Katz suggests, masculinity is often linked to violence in mass media, and my 2 advertisements reveal this idea through their verbal and visual content. The 2 images below, one for Hugo Boss cologne and the other one for Michael Kors cologne, illustrate Kilborn's assertion that men and women are often portrayed in drastically different and ultimately harmful ways in contemporary advertising. The movie posters below both fail the racial equality lens test as described by Shelby. Personally, I think the first 2 are a little bit better. I feel like this third thesis isn't quite as detailed or descriptive as it could be, but it still kind of gives you an idea of how you might draft a thesis statement. Notice that each of these statements focuses on an assertion, also known as a claim, that has to do with how people are portrayed in media images. Each of the statements also relates back to the lens text in some way. So in other words, all 3 of these thesis statements indicate what their lens is going to be. So in this one, they mention Shelby. Here, they mention Kilborn. In this one, they mention Katz. So in all 3 thesis statements, they're making it clear which lens they are using. And notice that each of these thesis statements makes a claim only about the writer's specific images. This is important because you can't possibly make claims for all media images ever produced. You can only make claims about your specific images. And I'd like you to write out a few attempts at a thesis. Again, if you'd like to get full credit here, I'm looking to see that you have at least 3 different thesis statements. It's okay if the thesis statements are a little bit similar. That's almost to be expected, but I do want to see 3 different thesis statements if you'd like full credit. In task 6.5, we're going to be creating an outline or some other plan for your draft. In the simplest terms, your paper should probably have three main sections: an intro, a body, and a conclusion. Typically, for a fairly shorter paper, like the one you'll be writing, your intro will be just one paragraph, or possibly two, and your conclusion will just be one paragraph. The body section, however, will consist of multiple paragraphs. There's no set number of paragraphs for the body section. You'll just need however many you'll need in order to fully develop your ideas. So I don't really believe in assigning a specific number of paragraphs for essays. A good writer will just write as many paragraphs as they need in order to properly develop their point and to organize it as well in a way that makes sense. Below are two sample generic outlines that could work for the kind of paper you are writing for Project 2. Of course, these aren't the only possible outlines you could use. See the flowcharts in the Analyzing Text chapter in the field guide for more ideas. You can also tweak either of these sample outlines to make them better work for you. So you have a couple of sample outlines here. In this first one, you're going to have an intro where you get the reader's attention, and you're going to state your thesis. In your body, you're going to describe image 1, then have a paragraph describing image 2. You'll analyze one of the images and make sure to apply your lens, and then you'd analyze the second image, and then in your conclusion, you'd provide any final comments on the image's meaning and cultural importance. Now, in the second one, you'll do the same thing, get the attention, getting opening, and your thesis statement, but then you'll kind of alternate. So you'll describe image 1 and then analyze it, describe image 2 and then analyze it, and then finally end with commenting on the meaning behind the images and or their cultural importance. Try to create an outline or some other written visual plan for your paper. You may follow the generic outlines given above, but please be much more specific in terms of the details. For instance, insert your actual thesis into the outline, mention what details you'll describe for each image, mention what ideas for the lens text you'll discuss in your analysis, and so on. So in these outlines, I'm looking for fairly specific ideas of what you're going to be talking about in this writing project. If you would like, you can create a web or a cluster or a vision board or some other visual representation. But again, make sure to include all of the details mentioned above. Most importantly, remember to consider your rhetorical situation. What is your purpose in writing? What are you trying to achieve? Who is your audience? How familiar will they be with your images, with your lens text? How much detail will you need to provide? And how can you guide your readers through your writing? In task 6.6, you're going to make your Friday discussion board post. You're going to post your working thesis statement for your paper and also post any concerns you have about your thesis statement. My goal is for me to provide feedback on each of your thesis statements so that you can revise them in time to draft your paper. I'd like you to also respond to at least 2 of your classmates' posts. What do you think about their thesis statements? Are they effective? Why or why not? Do you have any suggestions you want to share with them? Or if you like, you may also respond to your classmates' post from Wednesday. And finally, you will submit your weekly work by Sunday at 11:59. You should be submitting all the writing that you completed for tasks 6.2, 6.4, and 6.5.